to my channel. So today I have a review for you guys, and I'm sure you can tell by the title, but this is going to be a quick review on the Marc Jacobs. It's called the ReMarcAble Full Cover Foundation Concentrate, and this is what the foundation looks like, the package. I have two shades in this foundation. I ended up having to get two shades because the 82 Cocoa Light was too dark and the 58 Honey Deep was too light. The Marc Jacobs package looks like that when you remove the cover, and then you remove it and it has this thing that actually looks like a dropper, which it actually isn't, because you can't really squeeze this to squeeze the product out. But what you can do is pretty much pick up the product, and for me, I usually put it on the back of my hand, but you can, if you want to, go straight onto your face. I wouldn't recommend that because you don't want to contaminate the product, because you probably will be having this for a long time, and especially if you have, say, you know, acne or any type of open wounds, you don't want to bring that into the container. It comes with 0.75 fluid ounce, which is a little bit less than your typical foundation, which normally has about 1 fluid ounce in the container. And mind you, the price of this foundation I paid was $69. That is very, very expensive. But I am going to say that this foundation is so full coverage that I feel like the price justifies the lesser amount that you get in this package, honestly, because it's so full coverage that you don't need much to give you a flawless finish. So the fact that they reduce the amount that you would get in a typical foundation, it doesn't surprise me much because you're getting such a concentrated product. Let's also talk about shade range. The full cover, ReMarcAble Full Cover Foundation has, I think, 22 shades in the shade range. So you're getting anything from your fairest ivory shade to a dark, deep shade. It's not the deepest shade that I have obviously seen in a foundation, but it is a lot better than when he released the Genius Gel. The Genius Gel has, I think, about 13 shades, and you know, like, there isn't a lot of shades to choose from. So with this one, there are more shades, but there is jumps. Say, for example, my shade, I ended up going, as I said, with the 58 Honey Deep, and it skips like how many shades in between and jumps to a 82 Cocoa Light. So there is quite a bit of a jump between 58 and 82, and the shade difference, I'm not sure if you guys can tell by the package, but it's definitely different. The thing that I noticed with these foundations is that when you're looking at them in the bottle, they look quite warm. They look like they will be so friendly on tanned skin, you know, tan, dark, that kind of skin that has a lot of yellow in it. But what I noticed with this foundation, mind you, I did not have the Genius Gel foundation. So this is my first experience with a Marc Jacobs foundation. And I find that even though it looks very warm in the bottle, once you put it on, it's so odd. And even looking in the viewfinder right now, I feel like my skin looks gray. It still looks ashy. I can't really put my finger on it. It doesn't say that it has any, it doesn't say that it has any SPF in it, and it is even more obvious on camera. In terms of ingredients that they did note on the Sephora website, I can see actually now why there is that strong ashy look to the foundation, especially on more tanned, deeper skin. And one of them is called, they say, patented golden mica, which is a type of powder. And it said a pigment that gives skin soft focus perfection. So this is pretty much what both of the foundations look like on my hand. The top one is the Cocoa Light and the bottom one is the Honey Deep. What you're gonna see here is that as I said, they look so warm. They look very warm. They look like shades that would, you know, be so beautiful on the skin, but for some reason when I put it on, as even the darker shade, it just looks ashy. Which brings me to even photography. I noticed that this foundation has a very slight flashback. It doesn't have like an intense ghostly flashback, but I do notice that it does have a slight flashback. I do not use much concealer. Actually, I don't use concealer at all when I use this foundation. The most I would do, which I didn't do today, is use my Prep and Prime pen from MAC in the shade Bright Forecast. So it's a very light formula, and that's just pretty much used to brighten the under eye or anywhere that you would use a concealer, but it just has a lighter formula and less coverage. Skin types that I think would most suit this foundation is still questionable for me. I think that if you do have dry skin, you can get away with this foundation because it is made with some oils like jojoba oil in the foundation, in the ingredients. And I've read some reviews on Sephora, and there are people with dry skin that love and hate this foundation, and there are people with oily skin that love and hate this foundation. For me, I've tried it with so many different primers, but the one that gave me the best finish, the best, you know, wear throughout the day was the Makeup Forever all matte primer. And I honestly think that this also depends on what type of primer that you use with it, as with most foundations, I think. But this foundation, I tested all my primers with it, but the one that gave me the best wear throughout the day is this one. So as for me, I am oily combination skin. I would say I am normal around the perimeter of my face, but I'm more oily in the center. My Makeup Forever Smooth-In Primer, my Makeup Forever Radiant Primer, my which I use together, my Hourglass Primer, my Benefit 15-Hour Primer, as well as a Skindinavia primer that I use, which is a makeup primer spray. None of those worked for me, but the only one that worked for me that gave me a nice matte finish was this primer. So with that being said, I would say it's one of those foundations that you have to try. I can't really see it being for any particular skin type. As I said, it depends on your skin. So if you're extremely oily, you will definitely actually need to use a mattifying primer. And if you are on the drier side, I would say go in with a nice rich moisturizer and follow up with this foundation, because I still think that it has that texture that will suit a lot of different skin types depending on, you know, the primer that you use underneath it. As far as tools that I use for this foundation, oh, excuse my dirty beauty blender. Well, I used it today, but anyhow, the best one I find is the beauty blender. I have used it with kabuki brushes after kabuki brushes, and let me tell you, this foundation is so full coverage that it can get cakey very, 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 very fast. Therefore, I would say stay away from a kabuki brush, because what a kabuki brush does is actually, if you have a foundation that is not very full coverage and you want to build it up, I always go to a kabuki. If you have a very thick foundation that you want to sheer down and make it very flawless on the skin, use a beauty blender. I don't use anything but my beauty blender because it's the only thing that I find I can use it without looking like cake face. I mean, if that's the look that you are going for, I would say, you know, go ahead and use the kabuki, but I strongly recommend that you go over it afterwards with a beauty blender just to smooth everything out, because this foundation is so full coverage that, trust me, you're not gonna lose the coverage. It is so full coverage. As far as wear time on this foundation, once again, it goes back to the primer that I use. All the other primers I would need to blot in about 4 hours. With this primer, I can go all day with this foundation without worrying about it. Mind you, one of the powders that I need to use with this foundation is the Benai Banana powder. Even though it says it's a 24-hour wear foundation, it doesn't set. So after a couple hours, even as soon as you use it, the foundation still moves. Like when you contour and highlight, the foundation is gonna move. So you do want to be mindful of the type of powder that you set this foundation with, and I'll get into that in just a second. Positives. This foundation is very full coverage. This is the most full coverage liquid foundation that I've ever dealt with. It's very full coverage. So if you have a lot of blemishes, if you want to cover stuff, you're not gonna get a more full coverage liquid formula than this. I've never encountered that. With that being said though, it gets cakey really fast. So try to use as little as possible. Then my point number 2 of positive is the flawlessness that you get with this foundation. It is extremely flawless. I mean, to me, it reminds me of when you put your picture through a app to what would you say? Like when you put your pictures through those retouching apps on your phone, that is the type of look that you can get with this foundation. It's very smooth, it's very beautiful when you first apply it. On to the negatives. When I first received this foundation, I honestly hated it so much. I don't remember ever purchasing a product that I hated as much as I hated this foundation. I just couldn't understand what their motive was behind this product, and the number one thing that it doesn't do is that it doesn't set. So that's my number one pet peeve. You put it on and it still maintains sort of like not a dewy finish, but more of a satiny finish, and that's all fine and good, but it doesn't set. So if you touch your face, if you go in with, say, highlight and contour, the product is going to move. After wearing this product for about 8 hours, you are going to see a lot of wear on your face. You're gonna see the places where it breaks down. You're gonna see the places where the coverage faded. That's why I have to set it with something like this, because this is the only thing I can set it with that I know that it's almost locked in as much as I would like it to, but it's still not there for me. The moment I blot my face, the foundation is gone. Like it transfers onto whatever you're using to blot it with. You guys think about that. That could just be something that is personal to me, but a foundation that doesn't set and it's giving you a flawless full coverage is, to me, a nightmare. When it starts to break down, it looks horrible. It starts to look so cakey. And I mean, as I said, at first when you put it on, it's beautiful. It gives you a very flawless look, but 4, 5, 6, 8 hours into this foundation, you look, I mean, you don't want to be up close and personal with anyone, because it's going to be very obvious that you are wearing foundation. The less you use, the better. If you use too much of this, is the cakier it's going to look a few hours into wearing it. But the less that you wear, you're still getting that flawless look, but it's, you know, it's not going to look as cakey. My third negative with this foundation is that it's just so high maintenance. I mean, for something that costs $69 per bottle, it's very high maintenance, especially if you have oily skin. So those are my negatives. I can't say the price is a negative for me because it is so full coverage. If you can get away with using a little bit of this and you have normal skin where you don't need too much powder and you don't have too many oils, I can see where somebody could really love this foundation. That is all I have to say for this review, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.